Hey guys, how's it going? So today's video is going to be the unboxing and review of the EVGA RTX 3070 for the Win 3 Ultra Edition video card that I got here recently in the Newegg shuffle. And then on top of that, I'm going to go ahead and build a PC to put it in, because currently I've got my main gaming rig and I've got my AMD workstation, but I'd like to have this thing have its own dedicated system. I'm going to go ahead and put my capture card back in that, because I sold the PC that I had my my capture card in. I still have the card, but I sold the PC to one of my guys at work who wanted a gaming rig. His was, or he was playing on console and he wanted something newer. So I sold my capture card PC, so I need another one. So this will be like my fourth time doing that, because I'm an idiot and I always end up selling them to people I work with. That said, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time focusing on the build process of the PC. It's mostly going to be about evaluating the RTX 3070. But at least you guys can, I'll do a couple steps along the way that show the PC being built itself. But give me 1 second here, we'll get some things out of the box. You can see what I'm going to be working with, and then we'll continue on from there to actually play around with the 3070 and do some benchmarks and so forth. So stand by.
If you haven't already done so, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Thanks.
I've got kind of a basic CPU going on here, but because this is just going to be mostly a capture card system anyway, I didn't want to go crazy on the cost of processor, so this is just a Ryzen 5 3600. The reason for me not getting something more expensive than that is I didn't want to spend the money on something more expensive for just a capture card PC, but also the reason I'm even kind of building this in part is because I got this board with a different bundle. So when I did the review of the Asus RTX 3060 Ti KO overclocked edition card here a while back, this is what came bundled with that. And the video card was something for a coworker of mine, so he took the card, but I opted to keep the board because he didn't want it, and I figured I'd find something to do with it eventually. So here we are finding something to do with it. So this chip will work with this board. They do have a BIOS update for that board to allow it to use 5000 series chips, and eventually I may put something like that in there, but for the moment this was a fairly inexpensive option to get it up and running. If it has anything beyond the stock BIOS, it should actually work with 5000 series chips. I read on their site, like the first iteration of their BIOS only worked with 3000 chips, and then they almost immediately put out a BIOS update that started allowing support for like 5600X, 5800X chips, etc. So unless this is shipping with the absolute original stock BIOS, it probably would have worked with a 5000 series chip, but I didn't want to get one and then find out that it didn't work. So again, this was an inexpensive option, and this will work fine as a capture card PC with a, this is a 6-core 12-thread chip. This is more than enough for capture card kind of work and some decent gaming with the 3070. So it should be an acceptable option. I've really got an overkill cooler here. This is what I had on my Intel 11900K for a while until I replaced it with a thermosiphon, and I just put this back in the box. So I should be able to use this with this chip. It is overkill, but I went with another Fantex case that will match it and it'll look nice, and so it should definitely cool it better than the stock cooling would, of course. So that'll be, our cooler is the Fantex Glacier 1 280mm cooler, which again I've used in a previous video. So this is not the, this isn't a brand new cooler, but that's all right. I've got an extra Samsung 970 EVO 1TB NVMe drive that I had already, so I'm going to use that for my main OS drive to put Windows on and install a few games and install the recording software and so forth. But this board is sort of cheap. In fact, it's extremely cheap, and so it doesn't have any kind of heat sinks for the NVMe slots. So I bought a this is from a company called Arcgon. I don't think it says it anywhere on the box, but it's a little M.2 heat sink. So I guess I'll show you guys that here in a minute when I get it opened up. The box came a little crumpled up. A little disappointed in Newegg shipping this time around. They did a pretty piss poor job with the shipping. They actually, just to understand the nonsensical nature in which they ship things, they took this keyboard and they put it in a giant box and surrounded it with cushioning and air pocket shipping materials to keep it safe, right? Really quite a large box, much too large for the size of the keyboard. They took the 3070 and they stuck it in a box that it couldn't even fit in, so they just kind of sort of half-assed closed the box and taped it down so it would so it would sort of fit. They put one little air pocket thing in there that had no freaking value to it whatsoever. I'm surprised it didn't arrive damaged. The box in the bottom left corner here is crumpled a little bit, and so I've already opened it to verify that it's good, but the card looks fine. In fact, like I say, the internal of these boxes is just loaded with foam and so forth, so it's fine. It's just not good behavior by Newegg in their shipping. So whatever. Hopefully it'll be fine. If it doesn't work, then I guess I'll have to send it back and get a replacement. That'd be sort of lousy. The motherboard that I got in that shuffle combo is the Asus Tough Edition B450 Plus 2. And like I said, that'll work with our 3000 series chip Ryzen. And then I can update the BIOS if it isn't already done. And then maybe later I can replace that chip with a 5000 series if I want to. But really shouldn't need to for the purposes that I'm building this computer. I have extra Corsair Dominator Platinum. I got 32 gig kit of 3200 megahertz RAM here. As you may again recall, when I replaced my cooler on my Threadripper with the thermosiphon, the RAM was too tall to allow a thermosiphon, so I had to replace it with low profile memory, and thus I've got a few extra kits of this laying around. So we're going to use one of my kits of Corsair Dominator Platinum. So that'll be good enough RAM for what it's for. Not amazing for gaming, but it should be acceptable. And I've got a power supply I picked up from the store Custom Bytes that I used to do more videos about back in about a year ago, but they're still selling stuff out of the store, so I bought an EVGA 650 GT fully modular power supply, which ought to be more than enough to run a 3070 and a simple 65 watt processor. Since we're not going to really be doing a bunch of overclocking or anything, I can't imagine that this won't be sufficient, but if it's not, I can always replace it again in the future, but I think that should be fine. And finally, the case I went with is a Fantex, I think it's P600S is the series, and it's a mid-tower, so it's a little bit smaller than some of the cases that I've been getting from them. As you may remember, I had like that Fantex 719, which is huge, but it's still a pretty good-sized box. This is called a hybrid case. It has audio dampening foam panels that you can take out or put in, so if you want better cooling, you can take them out, but of course you'll hear more noise. And conversely, if you'd like to dampen the noise coming from it, you install those panels, but then of course your cooling will not be as good. And since we've got this thing in here that's probably going to put out a fair amount of heat, they may not use those panels. And I don't care that much about the noise anyway. It's not going to be that loud. So that said, I'll go ahead and get some things unboxed here, and we can have a look at the video card and go over the specifications of that. Then I'll build the PC, and once the PC is built, we can I'll have to install Windows, etc., which I'll do on my own time, and then we'll do some benchmarks and stuff. So we'll see here in just a moment. Give me a sec. Alright, so this is the case that I was talking about. I got out of the box. I was just going to show you guys, they've got these panels on here that you can take right off if you want, and that lets more airflow come through, but at the cost, of course, of more noise. Kind of got a foamy quality to it. I don't know if those can actually be removed as well. I could probably take the top off and find out, but the front has the same thing. So there's like a little flip up spot here to get access to your I/O, and then you have this panel here that can kind of slide up and be removed. I guess I probably need two hands to do that, so well. So you get the idea. The front has the same scenario where you can either cover everything up, or you can take those panels off and let more air get through, but at the cost of more noise. So that's the Fantex P600S hybrid tempered glass mid-tower. Nice looking case. I really like Fantex designs in general, as you guys may or may not know about me. Hey, this one actually came with some fans. That's good. They've been sort of cheap about that. This one's actually got two fans in the front. You can't really see them too well through the glass, but then we've got one exhaust fan in the back. That 719 case that I got that's like twice this size didn't come with any fans. I was really kind of irritated and thought they were being sort of cheap, but this time it came with pretty much all the fans I'm going to need, because the other two fans that I got for the radiator will go on top. So yeah, it really came with everything this time. That's sort of, at least that's nice. I wish I'd got one of these in the past. But all right, that's the P600S Fantex case. 1 second here. All right, getting down to the nitty gritty here. So we've got our EVGA for the Win 3 Ultra RTX 3070 video card. As I said, I already opened the box once to make sure it wasn't damaged or anything. And these things are pretty close to, if not the same size as the 3080s and the 3090s, which I was a little bit surprised by, considering it comes in a smaller box. And just in general, I thought they'd be a smaller card, but at least this one with that particular cooler on it is quite large. Some of the XE3 Ultra, or like the they have like the little XC coolers and XC3 coolers. Might be a little bit smaller card, but these are pretty freaking big. So give me a second here. We'll get it out of the box and we'll go over the specifications. Then I'll go ahead and build that PC. We'll get it installed and we'll test it out. So give me a second. I'll get it out of the box. Getting some lightning outside. That's a little disconcerting. Hopefully the power doesn't go out while I'm trying to work on this, or we're not going to have much, you know, you can hear there's the thunder again. Wow, it's getting pretty serious out there. Seems like we'll be finally getting to the end of this hot summer weather here pretty soon. As I said, this card is still monstrous. It's every bit as big as far as it might not be quite as long as the 3090 was, but physically it's about 2 3/4 slots thick, just like the 3090 that I had before was. Now this only has 2 8-pin power connectors instead of 3, so that's a slight difference. The power delivery section is going to be a bit different, and maybe the board is a little bit shorter as a result of that, but for the general layout of the card, it's physically quite monstrous. So we've got a little installation guide that EVGA always includes, and that seems to be all that was in the box, is the card and a little pamphlet with the installation guide, and it does look like it came with the EVGA case badge that they often include. So I personally don't like putting things on my cases, but if you do, it is something that they include with it. So pretty straightforward box contents. So now that I've got it out of the box and I'm looking at it, I do believe it is a little bit physically shorter in length than the 3090 was. If I can find out the dimensions for it, well, it says the length on this one is 11.81 inches, the height is 5.38, and the width, as I said, is 2.75 slots. So it's just as deep. I'd have to Google or verify what the 3090 length is, but I think it's probably about 1 inch to 1.5 inches shorter, because it definitely, I don't know, I feel like it's a bit shorter, which is good because, again, I've got a smaller case I'm working with this time, and last time I, of course, had full towers. This is a mid tower, so I want to have a little bit more space to work in. But as I said, nice big thick car. We've got the light up area just like the 3090 had, so this is all programmable lighting. On the back end of the card, you can hook up and connect things to it. So you've got an RGB 12 volt header here. I believe it's 12 volts. Might be 5. I think it's 5 volt. That's right. Sorry. Addressable RGB is 5 volt. The older style of RGB is 12. And then you've got your fan header here, so you can hook up like a splitter, for example, to that, and then run a bunch of fans off of it. Like on my gaming rig, I actually have like the CPU fans and the GPU fans off of a big splitter, and everything runs through the GPU, so I can control the fan speeds through EVGA precision software instead. Now, someone was asking on my channel, because they had watched my 3090 video, if this lights up, and I kind of don't think that it does on the 3070s. I think the lighting that you get is whatever you can control through the end and the side of the card, but I don't think that the back lights up. But I'll verify that, of course. We'll find out. But someone was asking me that question, and from what I can tell, I don't think that it does. So what I/O do we have? We have, again, the usual single HDMI 2.1, and we have 3 DisplayPort 1.4 ports. Peel off some of this stuff since we'll be needing to get that out of the way. And we've got our big 3 fan connections here. The specifications are, for an RTX 3070, it is 5,888 CUDA cores. It has a 1815 megahertz boost clock, and memory is 8 gigs of GDDR6 according to this. I thought these use 6X. No, I think it's 6X starts with the 3070 Ti. So it's using standard GDDR6, 14,000 megahertz effective, 448 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth. It has their ICX3 cooling technology, so you can screw around and view the various temperature levels of memory and junction temperatures and your GPU itself, and so on and so forth. Uses the PCI Express 4.0 interface, as we know, and it says it uses 220 watts of total draw power, but I kind of wonder how accurate that is with this particular version of the card. I think that they sometimes just list like whatever is on the NVIDIA website, because 220 watts is what they say when you look at like a Founders Edition. So I kind of feel like this card is almost certainly going to draw more power than 220 watts. It'll probably use more like 250 or even closer to 300 depending on the use case scenario. But again, that's what it says on the EVGA website. It has the nice little back plate here. I'll flip that over. You can kind of see what I'm talking about again. Nice metallic back. Feels like, I don't know what it's made out of. I guess if I can find out what it's made out of, I'll let you guys know as well. But it has sort of a metallic quality to it. Kind of, yeah, I think it's metal. And then, what else is it? There's again the two 8-pin PCI Express power connection required. Now, since this is using less power than the 3090 does, though, because those can jump up to like, into the 450 watt range, and this has ostensibly the same cooler, I bet this will probably run at pretty good temps, because again, if it's got a big aggressive cooler on it and it's not using that much power, I would think it'd do all right. That said, that's pretty much the card. That's the specs. Anybody has any questions, ask them in the comment section below. But I'll go ahead and get that computer built here. We'll get started on that, and when I get this installed, we can start testing it out. That'll take me a little while, so stick around. Well, should we see if it works? There's a little light coming off of it. Looks like things are lit up a little bit. Guess we'll find out if it's gonna work or not. Hey. So I got the the Fantex Glacier 1 connected into the back of the EVGA card, so they should be able to, I should be able to run LED sync and control that water cooler lighting with the EVGA software instead of hooking it up to the motherboard and using AuraSync. Maybe I didn't turn my monitor on, but I don't have a display yet. So, alright, well, at least it's set up. It looks like it's posting. So, next step is going to be, of course, to install an operating system and get things up and running. So, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And when everything's ready to go, we will start doing some testing. But it looks like it's going to work. So, stand by. So you can see the lighting is working in here pretty well, and I've got it going for kind of a pattern that matches what the RAM was already doing, because it retains its firmware instructions from the last system I had it installed in, so it's still doing like the whole matrix kind of lighting pattern there, but I can change it. And as I was wondering, there is no back panel lighting on this 3070. It's only the main strip and then whatever you plug into the back of the card that you can actually control from within the Precision X1 software. So this is like called color stack, and you can tell how many colors you want it to rotate between and how you want it to change. And then we've got, static, or we can just have it be green all the time, or whatever color I want to do. You can do your usual rainbow kind of stuff. Hold on a second there. Change it to rainbow, and you can see it'll start doing. What's kind of cool is like the CPU cooler is tied into it, so that looks kind of like a nice. It moves at the same pace. I think it looks kind of cool as they transition. But that's rainbow colors, color cycling. It's just going to kind of cycle randomly between colors. Color wave, kind of going back and forth. The cooler should do that eventually. There it goes. And so that kind of actually is what I'm doing anyway. So I could just set that to green, and then for some reason that didn't seem to work on the card. It still has a white look on it. I remember that being the case on some of the other ones too, where like for some reason green still looked white. There it went. Weird. Okay, but you get the idea. Through the Precision X1 software, just like before, you've got only two options now instead of the additional options you had in the past, because there's no lighting on the back of the card. It strictly lets you light up whatever the LED, 60 LEDs it's talking about is whatever you plug into the back end of the card on the RGB header, and then the actual front of the card itself, it lights up. Oh, and the little For the Win 3 insignia also is part of the lighting effect pattern, so you do get lighting there. So that said, next up I'll go ahead and show you guys the result of some benchmarks that I've run, and that should pretty much round up the video. So stand by and I'll load those up. Alright, so first we got AC Valhalla results, and as you can see here, the 1080p scores were pretty good, playable. Now we got 1440p results, and finally we've got some 4K results. And then next up we're going to have our 3D Mark Port Royal score, and then we've got some Time Spy and some Time Spy Extreme stuff going on. So if you guys enjoyed this video, oh, also we had superposition. But if you guys enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to the channel, as I'm still trying to build the channel up more. If anybody has any questions, please ask them in the comment section below. Anybody got anything else for me, let me know. You can hit me up on here. You can hit me up on social media. I'll be watching. Guys, have a great evening, and talk to you again real soon. Later.